We received a very strong call today, and the gentleman refused to give his name, so it's like an anonymous letter. He's very upset about the mound, which is going up to the south of the pool, and finds it offensive and how awful it is, and he's going to get a campaign going, writing letters to the local paper. And he thinks that people are going to march on City Hall and demand a change. Once that area has been landscaped and once it has been seeded, I think it's going to be a very positive addition to the park there. We eliminate all those trees. It's going to provide an element of quiet that the people in Glenview may not have experienced in quite some time during the summer, and it's going to be attractive. And Joe might want to comment on that further.
Okay, with that, we'll go to Public Works Director, Mr. Wrights.
Thank you. I distributed my weekly update, but I wanted to add some comments. The Lear Road, Krebs Road intersection project kicks off next Monday, the 17th. Residents in the area will start to see materials delivered at the end of this week and some equipment show up. We did go ahead and authorize the contractor to install the large highway signs like you see, the message boards. We're going to have one just south of Walker and one in Avon, just north of the Cleveland Clinic Rehab Hospital. So they'll be on that route telling people of the start date being next Monday. They'll remain up for a month, and with the intention that we'll install additional signage on there once people get somewhat used to the fact that there will be some construction. We have set that up with the police department for them to have off-duty officers there while they're working in the roadway. So long-awaited project. It would anticipate to be up, and by the time the traffic signal gets up, we would anticipate that being the end of September, including all the timing that we would require to put up the signage and get people used to the fact that there's going to be a traffic light there. So construction starts next Monday, and we ask for everybody's patience in this as we can all understand this is a long-awaited project for the area, and once it's completed, I'm sure people will be much appreciative, especially those people trying to get in and out of Krebs Road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions from Mr. Wrights? Miners?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Joe, I've got 3 questions for you. Number 1, leaf pickup, that started, last Monday? Will that continue through the summer?
This is yard waste in the brown bags.
Yes.
And the trash cans. Yeah,
Yes.
that will go all the way through the end of November.
And when do you anticipate picking up the grass clippings?
Mr. Wrights?
Yeah, thank you. Grass clippings, if they're in the bags, is started with the yard waste pickup last week also.
I understand that, but what if they don't put the yard clippings in the bag, like sometimes we don't do, we just put it on the tree lawn?
Mr. Wrights?
It will not get picked up.
Never gets picked up.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Koss?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Council President. Joe, before tonight's meeting, we had discussion that there were some areas of the city that had not had their bulk picked up. If somebody's bulk does not get picked up, and I guess there's still a little bit of daylight out there, I don't know if they're still out there or not, but if someone's bulk does not get picked up, what should that resident do or residents do?
Mr. Wrights?
You could call our office at 930-4101 or email me at jrreitz@avonlake.org, and I will pass that information on to our local area rep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to alert everyone that on April the 27th, the EAB and the Environmental Committee are going to be initiating a melanoma prevention program at the high school. I will be there with a skin scope so that anyone that's there can bring their cell phone and they can take a look. We can take a look with the lights of their skin, we'll photograph it. If they have any concerns, they can go to their physician. We have gone through the superintendent and the head nurse of the high school, and we're going to be there during all of the lunch periods. And I thank the high school for working with us.
Mr. Koss, you take the first motion, please.
Thank you, sir. I move to authorize the purchase of a speed trailer from Custom Signal in the amount of $14,452.59.
Discussion?
Yes, this is an item, as I just mentioned, that came out of tonight's safety committee meeting. This speed trailer will be used by the Avon Lake Police Department. And what makes this speed trailer different than the one that we currently use, is that this one will have a message board sign on it. So not only will you see the speed, but whatever messages the city wants to display along with that. This is going to be purchased from, this is a model Smart 850 being purchased from Custom Signal, who designed or made our current speed trailer. So this we'll have 2 speed trailers now. This item was budgeted at $16,000, so this came in under budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next motion, I'll move permitting Mrs. Fenderbosh to abstain from voting on temporary legislation 10,855. In discussion, Mrs. Fenderbosh, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Yes, the governor's appointed me to a commission with the Ohio EPA, and part of accepting that position, I needed to sign a form stating that I would not be involved in a controversial discussion between the city or legislation between the city and the state of Ohio. So I will be stepping out of the room during the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We now go to first readings of the clerk will read temporary legislation 10,855, please.
A resolution opposing the State of Ohio Governor's proposed 2017-2018 budget, which proposes centralized collection of net profit tax returns and other provisions related to the municipal income tax, which will cause a substantial loss of revenue needed to support the health, safety, welfare, and economic development efforts of Ohio municipalities, and declaring an emergency.
Move for suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings. Ms. Adopt the roll, please.
Mr. Busey?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Koss.
Yes.
Mr. Minor?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Shondell?
Yes.
I move for passage of legislation 10,855. This was some discussion we had last week on this item. This is an item that's in the House budget, still being debated at that point. It requires businesses to file the net profit tax returns with the state instead of the cities, and then the state would return the monies to the cities with a fee, which is right now 1%. I did get some information. I got a couple different pieces of information. Kent Scarrett, who's the executive director of the Ohio Municipal League, stated what we're talking about here, just on this type of net profit tax, is about $600 million that the state would collect and get a 1% fee out of each city when they do that. Now, that fee could be higher, but that would be money, again, cities would lose. Also, to set this up, it would cost the state, this came out of the Ohio Finance Committee and some of the research I did, it would cost the state about $9 million dealing with employees, and their software is not capable of handling all the cities at this point in time. The one gentleman by the name of Kevin Robeson, who's the assistant tax administrator in Columbus, who's also worked on the state software, one of the things he is concerned about and is that he estimates that if this thing was to go into effect, the payment you received in December, for an example, you would not get till April. They would go to a quarterly system of delivering money.
As you pointed out, as Mr. Presley pointed out, that right now the businesses are filing with one entity, RETA. And then when they have 2, I just guarantee you, as sure as God made green apples, that the logic of the state will be, well, now that they have to file with 2 different agencies, we'll make it simpler. You can just file with us. Mr. O'Donnell said, then we're dealing with not millions, but we're dealing with billions of dollars. And the closer the money stays to where it's collected, the better. We've never really said enough about the fact that the governor of the state of Ohio has bragged about balancing his budget, but at the same time, there was this huge cut in local government funds, and it may not equal the amount of the budget surplus, but it certainly made a big part in it.
It's Karen Kirsch from First Energy, and Karen has offered to come down here and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you, Mrs. Kirsch.
Senate Bill 128, just found out about it last week. However, what we're hearing from the opposition from some groups is a bit alarming, and these are groups that we have worked very closely with through my tenure here, most importantly NOPEC. And I was talking to Mr. Shondell before the meeting, and he worked closely with NOPEC too when he was the Public Utilities Committee chairman, and we had both agreed that we could not recall a time when NOPEC had such a strongly worded statement that they put out in opposition to something. So that is quite alarming. From what I've seen, from what I've heard from these organizations that we know and we work with and we trust, It doesn't look like this is a good deal for Avon Lake residents, for the region, for the customers. But I'll just talk about Avon Lake residents with the potential cost of $5 per month. And over the course of it, the number that has been put out there is approximately $920 it could cost over the 16 years that is being discussed that this would be in effect. Could you let us know, to the best of your ability right now, what is the benefit for Avon Lake residents?
90% of the gas-fired, I mean, gas is cheap now. Gas is great. Everybody loves it. So we're building gas-fired plants, generation plants. And the 90% of them don't have a firm contract with the gas supplier, meaning that they're going day to day based on availability of that day, and they're going day to day on their pricing for that. So when the polar vortex hit, all the gas companies were saying, sorry, we can't serve you right now. So those gas-fired plants were not serving our energy load. So what we're saying is that there needs to be a diversity in sources of electric generation. Coal, we know it gets a bad rap, but it's still there. We have 1 year worth of coal sitting there to serve that, 24/7. Nuclear, we have 2 years worth of fuel there. So that's available 24/7. We don't have that availability with gas. And we shut down 3 of our coal plants in the last couple of years, Lake Shore, East Lake, and Ashtabula. We did that to avoid paying $400 million to bring those plants up to code. But what happened is PJM, which is the grid operator for this area, said, okay, now if you don't have that capacity of those plants, we have to import it from somewhere else. So we ended up spending a $1 billion transmission line to save $400 million.
You had mentioned the coal plants, and I left out one of the groups in opposition. NRG right here in Avon Lake has put out a statement that they oppose the Senate bill as well, too. So obviously that's right here in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And while NRG, sometimes we don't always see eye to eye with what their intentions are, when they take that type of a stand, it catches our attention here in the city. With regards to renewable energy, what steps has First Merit's gone. First Energy, what steps have they taken towards renewable energy to avoid a situation like this?
Solar and wind are not there 24/7. We're at the mercy of when the sun's shining and when the wind is blowing. So again, that's one of the beautiful benefits of nuclear energy, is that it's there 24/7 for years at a time. So we haven't been investing in building those things because they're not financially sustainable right now.
I see this as kind of like a bailout to a certain extent. If every resident has to pay the $5 or whatever that amount would be. And in an article, actually, that I think Charles Jones is the CEO or president of that nature. I mean, he had, they're basically looking at selling these plants and trying to get out of the business. I mean, you guys have made some moves, if you want to talk about naming it Browns Field, but you're losing about, you got a $550 million debt payment in 2018, and you've lost about $391 million in the first 9 months of 2016. Now, you might have gained some money back since that period of time. But you got a lot of losing entities, and I understand that this would kind of subsidize it, but we'd also be giving money to an entity that you'd probably ended up selling out, your nuclear plants, and you got to admit, you guys are trying to get rid of some of these plants and selling them. So, Mr. Costa.
Yeah, and just for the record, for Mr. Busey's and Mr. Shondel's point, in the January 2013 edition of the Plain Dealer, they reported First Energy will be paying the Browns an average of about $6 million a year for at least 17 years for the rights to name the stadium, which comes to an approximate total of about $102 million.